Hey students, how are you all? Once again, welcome back to another session of the online English classes. In today's video, we're not going to discuss anything from the literature or the writing section, but once again, we are going to discuss one of the very important topics of grammar. Our today's topic of discussion is the very integral part of English grammar, that is a sentence. Now this is something without which the English language wouldn't have been possible. So in today's video, we're not just going to discuss what exactly a sentence is, but we're going to see how many types of sentences are there, and we're also going to see the different components in a sentence. Since you people already have a lot of idea about what exactly a sentence is and how many types of sentences are there, so today's video is basically just a revision of all the things that you have already learned. Before we dive deep into our discussion of the concept of sentence, it's very important to first know the definition of a sentence, or what exactly is a sentence. So if you are asked to define the word or the term sentence, you can write, a group of words that makes complete sense is called a sentence. Alright, so a sentence is something by reading which you would understand something. You will get something out of it. Alright, and if you do not understand anything, that means there is something wrong with the sentence. Let us see some examples. Color blue, favorite is mine. Now this is something which has no meaning at all. Yes, does it make any sense? Does it sound alright? No, it doesn't. That is why we cannot call it a sentence, because as we have just now seen that a group of words have to be assembled together in such a way so that it makes sense. Now let's come to the second example. My favorite color is blue. Now this is something from which you can make out the meaning. Yes, you can understand what exactly this sentence means. That is why this sentence is a perfect sentence, and since it makes complete sense, it can be called a proper sentence. If we divide a sentence into two parts, we get the subject and the predicate. So what exactly are these two words? Subject is the naming part of a sentence, and it tells us who or what the sentence is about. So basically we are talking about the noun or the pronoun. So nouns and the pronouns in the sentence, in the very first part of the sentence, those are the subjects. And which is the predicate? The telling part of a sentence is the predicate. It tells what has happened or what is happening. Alright, so let us see the example. The rabbit ate the carrot. The rabbit is the noun. Okay, so this is who we are talking about. That is why the rabbit is the subject. And ate the carrot. Now ate is the verb. Now in this part of the sentence you can understand what exactly is happening. That is why this is the predicate. So a predicate has a verb in it. Yes, but the subject doesn't have a verb in it. This is something that you always have to be very careful about. So ate is the verb, but carrot is also a noun. So a predicate can have a verb. It must have a verb, but it can also have a noun. Alright, so this is how you have to divide subject and predicate. Let us see some more examples. Now see the examples here. I want a new car. Here I is the subject. I is the person we are talking about. Yes, and what is happening? The person I wants a new car. So this is a predicate. You see here a verb is there, want, and the noun is also there, a car, along with an adjective as well. Now let us see the next examples. Mr. Smith took a walk. Simply you can understand that Mr. Smith is the subject and took a walk is the predicate. Yes, in the second part of the sentence we can understand what exactly is happening. The dentist pulled out a tooth. The dentist is the subject here, and pulled out a tooth. This part of the sentence is telling us about the activity. That is why it is the predicate. Now see the next example. The pig with the big snout slobbered on a kid. Alright, now you must be wondering that why is it that so much of this sentence has been considered as the subject? Why not we're considering only the pig as the subject? It is because the pig with the big snout is the description of the pig. Yes, so we're talking particularly about a pig who has a big snout. Alright, so here not just the noun but also the description of that particular noun will be considered as the subject. And the predicate is slobbered on a kid. So you just see, students, here what is happening, every predicate is starting with the verb. Yes, the want a new car, want, took a walk, took, pulled out a tooth, pulled, slobbered on a kid, slobbered, all these are verbs. So basically, if you have to find out which part of the sentence is the predicate, you can understand that if it starts, in most of the cases, not all cases, alright? In most of the cases, the predicate starts with a verb. Now that we have discussed what a subject and a predicate is, let us move on to phrase and clause. Now, what are these two words? Let us see the difference. What is a clause? A clause is a part of the sentence that contains a verb. Okay, so a typical clause consists of a subject and a predicate, and the latter typically a verb phrase, a verb with any objects and other modifiers. Alright, so it simply means, if you just simplify all of this, you will understand that whichever part of the sentence has the verb in it, that is a clause. Alright, so the part, every sentence where you will find a verb, that part of the sentence would be called a clause. So you have to be very, very careful about it. Alright, now you can see some examples are also given. He must stop laughing. Yes, they have done the job. Tom likes the meat. You see, they not just have, these sentences not just have the noun, but they also have the verb in it. We like the music that you brought. So these are basically complete sentences. Nothing is ununderstandable here. You can understand every single part of this sentence and it is complete in itself. Now let's come to a phrase. What exactly is a phrase? It is a small group of words that add meaning to a sentence. Alright, so these are not full sentences. These just are extra supplies to the sentence so that the sentence becomes meaningful. A phrase is not a sentence because it is not a complete idea with a subject, verb and a predicate. So students, your phrase will not have all these things together. Okay, so it may have a subject but it may not have a verb. It may have a verb but it may not have the subject. So something like this. And some examples that you can see are the information age, earnest in her desire, much too quickly to see clearly, after a very long walk. If you just read these few set of words, you'll not be able to make out a meaning from these, and this is the reason why these are meaningless and these are called phrases. So once again, a clause is that part of the sentence which is complete in itself, which contains a verb, and a phrase is a group of words that just add meaning to a sentence. They are not sentences in itself. Now students, a clause can be divided into two more parts, a dependent clause and an independent clause. Now let us see what these two words mean. An independent clause is a clause or a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, and it makes sense on its own as a sentence. Alright, so it is complete in itself. These group of words are arranged in such a way that they don't need any support from any other words. So when we are talking about independent clauses, we would know that there has to be a subject and a verb in it. And some examples are Jane ate pasta. Alright, so this is a complete sentence. These three words are complete. So if you read these three words, you'll have a fine understanding of what exactly is happening. Sam went to the park. Again, a complete sentence. Now let us see what dependent clause is. Again, a dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. Okay, so in this case, both are similar. In both independent clause and a dependent clause, you will find that there are a group of words which do contain a verb and a subject. But On the one hand, where independent clause makes sense, a dependent clause does not make sense on its own. It needs support. It needs help from other words. It cannot stand on its own. Now see the examples of a dependent clause. For example, because she was hungry. Now, if you read only this sentence, because she was hungry, you know it is not complete because it is a part of something. If you ignore Jane ate pasta, you would understand that this is something that is not making sense. Okay, because she was hungry. So what before that? Something must have been there before it. Okay, so it needs support. It is not complete. And after he finished school, once again you'll get a feeling that this is not complete. This does not make sense. It needs support from another sentence. Now if you read both the clauses together, you see, Jane ate pasta because she was hungry. So same sentence but two divisions. One is the independent clause, Jane ate pasta, and the dependent clause is because she was hungry. Again, Sam went to the park after he finished school. So if you divide this sentence into two parts, into an independent clause and a dependent clause, this is what you will get. Now students, if we talk about the different types of sentences, you may come up with an imperative sentence or an interrogative sentence or a negative sentence like that. But if you divide if you talk about sentences based on the structure, you will have four types. So one is a simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and the compound and complex sentence. So let us see what these are. A simple sentence is very easy to understand. It is a sentence which consists of one independent clause or the main clause with no dependent clause. So there will be no other clause. Your sentence will have only one clause, which one will be independent in nature, which will not need any help from any other set of words. So here you can learn another thing, that an independent clause is also called a main clause, whereas a dependent clause is called a subordinate clause as well. So if you find anywhere that main clause and subordinate clause are written instead of these independent and dependent, these two words, you do not fret, do not be scared. Just understand that main clause is the other word for independent clause and subordinate clause is the other word for dependent clause. Now some examples are, I come, the boy cried, Canada is a rich country, the girl ran into her bedroom, some students like to study in the morning. You see, you will not find many divisions here. There is no other clause. There is only one clause, which is an independent clause. Okay, all these sentences are complete and these do not need any kind of a support from another set of words. Now let's talk about the compound sentence. It is a type of sentence that consists of two or more independent clauses with no dependent clause. Alright, so once again we are dealing with a kind of sentence where you'll have two parts which are independent in nature, which do not need any kind of support. So in these compound sentences, not just two, you can have more than two clauses as well, but all the clauses that you will find are independent in nature. Yes, they'll be complete in themselves, they'll be main clauses. Now usually they are linked by the coordinating conjunctions. I hope you remember that we have already discussed about coordinating conjunctions in the previous video. Yes, and the coordinating conjunctions that are used to link the independent clauses in a compound sentence are and, but, so, or, either, or, neither, nor, or, then. So these are basically the linking words or the conjuncts that are used to connect the different clauses in a compound sentence. Now let us see the example. She works in the city, but she lives in the suburbs. Now if you take but as the barrier and if you divide the rest of the sentence, she works in the city. If you just see this part, you will find that this is a complete sentence. It needs no other support. Yes, it is complete in itself. Its meaning is perfectly understood. So it is a main clause. It is independent in nature. Now let's go to the second part. She lives in the suburbs. Well and fine. There is no difficulty in understanding what this sentence is trying to say. Once again, we are dealing with the main clause, which is independent in nature. And how are we joining these two independent clauses together? We are taking the help of a coordinating conjunction, but. Now let us talk about the complex sentence. It is a kind of sentence that consists of one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So here, unlike the previous two kind of sentences, the complex sentence has an independent clause as well as a dependent clause. So both the main and the subordinate clause can be found in this kind of a sentence. And here, the two sentences are joined not by the coordinating conjunctions, but by subordinating conjunctions like as if, before, after, because, although, and such. Examples are, John cannot set up his computer. Now this is an independent clause. You can absolutely clearly understand what exactly is meant here. John cannot set up his computer because the setting is complicated. So this part of the sentence is the dependent clause, and here the word because, which is a subordinating conjunction, the help of this word has been taken. She became queen. See, this is one independent clause. When her father died. So when her father died is the subordinate clause because she was the eldest child. Another dependent clause. Yes, so here we are getting the case where we are dealing with one independent clause and more than one dependent clause. So we have two dependent clauses here and one independent clause. And in front of both these subordinate clauses or the dependent clauses, you're finding the subordinating conjunction when and because. And the last type is the compound complex sentence. So from the name only, I hope you understand that it will have features from both the compound sentence and the complex sentence. So basically, this is a kind of sentence which consists of two or more independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. So it must have a dependent clause and more than two independent clauses. So when you are writing a compound complex sentence, your sentence is going to be quite big in size. Let us see the example. Although she worked hard to gain recognition, many people did not know who she was, and her friends did not even appreciate her work. So you see, all of this belongs to one single sentence only. Let us see in details how we can break it. Now, the same example, although she worked hard to gain recognition, many people did not know who she was, and her friends did not even appreciate her work. So here, the very first part of the sentence, although she worked hard to gain recognition, is a dependent clause. Now, the next one, many people did not know who she was. This is an independent clause. This is a sentence, this is the part of sentence which needs no support. It is complete in itself. Yes, and the last part is, her friends did not even appreciate her work. So once again, if you read just this part of the sentence, you'll understand what it means, and it is complete in itself. Unlike the very first one, although she worked hard to gain recognition, that is an incomplete sentence. Now, how are these two joined? All these three clauses joined together. These are joined with the help of a subordinating conjunction as well as a coordinating conjunction. So both types of conjunctions are needed here. So you see in the very beginning, although, so that first dependent clause is starting with a subordinating conjunction, and the two independent clauses are joined together with the help of the coordinating conjunction. Now students, it is quite difficult to remember all these things at the same time, like which type has how many number of this clause or that clause. So here is a table. You can easily understand from it. So just see the type of sentence, the independent clause, and the numbers are mentioned basically. Okay. So in the simple sentence, there is only one independent clause. And independent clause, what can you see? There's a minus sign, which means there is no dependent clause. Alright. In the case of a compound sentence, two or more than two independent clauses you'll find, but not a dependent clause. No dependent clause would be there. So only two independent clause you can find in a compound sentence. So in complex sentence, you will have one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So minimum is one. It can be more than one as well. And in the compound complex sentence, again, you need two or more independent clauses and with at least one dependent clause. With this, we come to the end of today's discussion on the chapter sentence. I hope you found this helpful, and since your exams are coming near, I hope this particular video would help you a lot, and good luck for your exams. Stay safe and goodbye.